Alright, I just want to do a quick video on Edward Leedskalnin and his two famous sites in Florida named Ed's Place and Rockgate Park. As with any great story, it begins with our parents. Ed's father was born May 15th, 1853. Passed away sometime in 1940. Ed's mother was born December 17th, 1853. She passed away March 11th of 1923. You can see they had a fairly large family. Edward Leedskalnin himself was born 1887. Some have said he was born August 10th of 1887. I believe his real birth date was January 12th of 1887. He passed away December 7th, 1951. Ed's fiancée, famous Sweet 16, she was born in 1889. The two of them fell in love in the mid to late 1900s. They head off to the church to get married. A bunch of family shows up to witness the marriage. And unfortunately, she heads out of the church and does not marry Ed at the last minute. Ed, heartbroken, as the story goes, decides to leave his home country. He leaves around 1910, 1911. Some say it was over heartbreak. Others say he was into a lot of deeper stuff and he had to get out of there. 1912, March 23rd, Ed leaves Hamburg, Germany on the SS Pennsylvania. April 6th, Ed arrives in New York. At the same time, another important character in the story, Reuben Moser, settles into Florida City. In 1915, it is said that Ed writes his last letter to Irma. This is the last year that Ed receives letters from his homeland at all. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on over in his homeland. A lot of paranoia, etc., etc. All letters cease. 1916, we find that Ed has moved and has a piece of property in Alton, Oregon. January 4th, 1916, Edward Leedskalnin purchases a piece of property from John and Eliza Rowe. It's adjacent to John and Eliza Rowe's property, so they're side by side, and there's a creek that's running through there. Now, it's stipulated that Ed would like to build an 18-foot tall water wheel that will adjoin the properties as it crosses the creek, which separates both properties. So he wants to build an 18-foot tall water wheel. Not sure what reason. January 6th, Oregon Deed Index reports Ed purchased some land from S.P. Fenley. So not only does he purchase a piece of property in Alton from John and Eliza, but then a couple days later he purchases another piece of land in Alton from an S.P. Fenley. Where Ed is getting this money from at this point, we do not know. You look down here, December 18th of 1916, Roseburg, Oregon. says Ed Leedskalnin, labor, special number 7. Ed is shown to be working as a laborer. 1917, June 30th of 1917, Edward Leedskalnin purchases the rest of the property. So he's got both sides of the creek now. He purchased it for $75 from John Rowe after Eliza passes away. So Eliza passes away. John wants to sell the place. So now Ed's got both sides. We don't know if he built any water wheel there or anything. July 10th of 1917. Ed is still listed in Elkton, Oregon as a worker. So 1918, Latvia becomes an independent country. November 18th, 1918. 1919, although Ed was registered in Oregon in 1920, a witness testified under oath that Ed arrived in Florida as early as 1919. That would have been out of Andrea Stavros' book, Corral of Pills. 1920, Ed is listed as living in Reedsport, Oregon. He is head of the household with companion Clement DeSomers. His job description now is he's laborer at the lumber mill. So as far as we know, he still owns that property in Elkton, or the properties in Elkton. So April 2nd says the land Ed purchased in Oregon is sold to Johnny Rowe. Which seems strange. Anyway, now also, after Ed passed away, the executor found a will dated for April 12th, 1920. It was written in Reedsport, Oregon. According to this will, he hands over his property to his father. He writes out a will when he's living in Reedsport, Oregon. He's living with Clement DeSomers. Clement DeSomers may be taking, helping him out, taking care of him. Ed decides to sell the land that he purchased back to Johnny Rowe because now Ed feels like he's dying. I'm thinking that Ed leaves Oregon very ill after writing that will. He heads off on a train to Homestead Station where he meets Mr. Moser. I think it's possible he's already met Mr. Moser before. Mr. Moser takes Ed to a doctor, and now Ed is staying with the Moser family. The doctor says Ed has a very short time to live. So they say it's not known why Reuben Moser gave Edward asylum, and the doctor, B.J. Coleman, found the patient to be 1 meter and 70 centimeters tall, but weighing only 44 kilograms. His health was so deplorable, Dr. Coleman did not expect Ed to live for any time at all, maybe a number of months. Now they say in Andrew Stavros' book, perhaps there was a special trust between Ed and Reuben, because for the first 3 years, Ed worked on a plot of land owned by the Mosers. It is not known which of them wanted the piece to become Ed's property. So 1920, Ed is already working on this land. 1921, it said that Ed buys a lot in San Bernardino, California. 1922, January 6th, Ed purchases a piece of land in the Cooley Trail from Frank W. Leonard. So in November, Ed buys some property, San Bernardino. January 6th, Ed purchases another piece of land, the Cooley Trail. Otto buys 16 acres back in the homeland. Ed probably was not aware of this news because there was not letters going back and forth. But so obviously, 1922, Ed must be working on his home this year, because it took at least 2 years to finish his first tower. His first project was the wooden shack. He built that at first on 2-foot stilts, and then he began clearing undergrowth and weeds on the property. Then he started working with all this small stone here, ended up raising this up onto his stone tower. So 1922, Ed is busy at work with this place. He's already built his shack and everything. 1921, 1920. He's working on this area of land. He hasn't bought it yet or anything. We're not sure if he's working on it for Mr. Moser and Mr. Moser wanted something built on it, or what. Or if Mr. Moser figured Ed was going to pass away soon and he just gave it to Ed to work on just for something to do, to fix up. Regardless, 1923, Ed decides that he wants to buy the place. He actually names it Ed's Place. He makes the entrance gate, the admission sign, drop 10 cents. Headstones were seen by farmers, railroad workers, old ladies from Homestead's First Baptist Church, Indians, and local school teachers who brought their classes to Ed's Place. All this already in 1923. So deed, January 6, 1923, that Frank Leonard to Edward Leedskalnin sells Lot 6, Block C in the Cooley Trail in 1923. So now we've got November 1921, Ed buys some property in San Bernardino. January 6th, Ed purchases, 1922, January 6th, Ed purchases a piece of land in the Cooley Trail from Frank Leonard. 1923, it says. Once again, Ed buys some more land off Frank Leonard. Cooley Trail. And we have February 28th, 1923, R.L. Moser to Edward Leedskalnin. This is a deed for Ed's Place. At this point, October 28th, 1923, R.L. Moser is very sick. He's been in Miami at the Terrace Hospital, was brought home Wednesday. He underwent an operation about 10 days ago, but has changed for the better. So February 27th, Ed purchases Ed's Place, 1 acre of land from Reuben Moser, 209 by 210 square. Then on February 30th, Ed withdraws his offer. He cancels it. Doesn't want it. March 11th, Ed's mother passes away. September 22nd, a new subdivision is announced in the Miami Herald. This new subdivision shares land that has been settled already by Reuben Moser and Edward Leedskalnin. There's a month unknown in here where Ed becomes distant and discontinues all work on the expansion of the tower that he said he was building for Suite 16. Now, he could be upset about his friend Reuben Moser, who's very sick. He could be upset that his mum passed away. Or he could also be upset that he found out that Irma's actually not coming. December 7th, Ed purchases a larger plot from Reuben for $12. This plot measures 330 by 150. Ed continues work on his home and officially names it Ed's Place. So December 7th, Ed decides, alright, I'm going to keep this property, I'm going to continue working on it, and I'm actually going to name it. So Ed finishes his wall around his acre, but not with much care or effort. He digs his well deeper, starts carving furniture. Said the first rocker was first, and then more rockers. And then the star bowl for water, the Florida table, and a number of other small tables. Ed was quite busy. 1923. He already had his tower up and everything. He had his wall started around the whole place. He put the ADM sign up. 1923. But something happened. One thing that did happen, his mother passed away in March. It could have really affected him. Or he found out, like I say, that Irma was not gonna come to Florida. They might have had a plan, you know. So yes, Reuben Moser very sick. Ed buys the property from Reuben Moser, $12. I think he may have bought this also off Reuben because he knew Reuben was going to pass away. So he cancels and then he decides, okay, I am going to buy it. Okay, 1924, a month and a half into the new year, and Reuben Moser passes away. One of Ed's best friends in Florida passes away. He dies Sunday afternoon after a long illness. Reuben Moser was only 60 years of age. This is the chunk of land that Reuben Moser owned. And this is where Ed's Place is, on the corner. $1925. After Mr. Moser passes away, the land is surveyed and recorded in the land register without Ed's knowledge. Ed's not happy about that when he does find out. Now, it's also said that Ed made the twin beds and the cradle in 1925. (1928) Ed carves the star, the obelisk. It's said that Ed broke the first two either trying to raise them or during carving. Earl S. Lee shares this among other particular details of Ed carving and raising the obelisk in a sworn affidavit, April 21st, 1994. There's still pieces at Ed's original place, and I believe this may have been part of the first obelisk that he tried to raise. So Ed makes the star obelisk in 1928, but he does not raise it for a number of years. 1930, Ed still has not raised the obelisk. Newspaper photos show the foundation for Suite 16, living quarters, walls built with smaller stones are completed. Crest in the east is finished. The repentance corner is not there. There is no repentance corner made yet. The sun couch is finished. It's over here. Carving has begun. Carving's begun on the moon fountain. You can see here. Ed started carving the moon fountain. No repentance corner, no sign of the obelisk, yet the obelisk is carved somewhere. (1932). Now we can see the repentance corner is finished. He's got the obelisk up. January 3rd, 1932. Miami Daily News states Ed is nearly finished. Also they describe, referring to the obelisk and the crescent moon, that from the apex of these giant pillars is stretched a radio aerial, and the owner likes to joke that he gets his music from the heavens. So from there to there. 1932, Ed's basically called it good. He's done. All good. He's got many visits from all the women's clubs out there and school groups and you name it. Anybody who was anybody would have been showing up there. Could you imagine the conversations? 1933 gets a little bit strange here. Got some beautiful newspaper articles coming out showing the place all finished. The repentance corner, the crescent, the obelisk. And in 1933, in the newspaper, you get investigators investigate Ed's place and Red Land District, because they're trying to sell a bunch of land out there too, right? After seeing Red Land District Fruit Festival, go to Ed's place and have a new experience. Admission 10 cents. Alright. Then we got this one. It's a little blurry. Promoters, investors, laymen. If you want to have something original for business or other purpose, look over Ed's place, Stone Age Garden, and see how much money you can make of it. So does that mean he's trying to sell it, or they're saying, go look at Ed's place and see what you could do with your own piece of land? Because down here, go to Ed's place, have a new experience, bring your camera. You will want your picture taken. Come before noon if possible. So it doesn't sound like he's wanting to sell the place necessarily. So the following year, so we're in, let's say 1934, somewhere in there, unknown people break into Ed's place. They beat him so bad that Ed almost lost his life, and he slept in the hospital for a long time. In 1934, Ed posts a document titled "To All Concerned." Ed says his land was surveyed and recorded in the land register without his knowledge. He requests the listing be terminated and no public street, avenue, alley, or road be opened that could affect his property. It's possible that when Ed posted this on January 16th in the newspaper, that someone hired some thugs to go beat him up. It's possible, because not long after this, Ed decides to move, right? Well, it's just a thought. So yes, Ed gets beaten and put into the hospital. Next thing you know, Ed reveals plans that he was going to enlarge Ed's place, but now he's cancelled the plan due to his beating. This is the first time also that it's quoted, Ed saying, "I do it the same way the old Egyptians built their pyramids." (1935). A number of newspapers ran a copy-paste article poking a bit of fun at Ed for still waiting for his bride, and saying she will most likely never come because every wife likes to be able to rearrange the furniture once in a while. They state, someone should break the news to him that his bride is not coming. This little article showed up in many newspapers. It was written by a guy named Paul Harrison, 1936. A book in every home is published by Edward Leedskalnin. Nobody knows where the original book is. Now, also Ed may have carved the second crescent seat for the moon fountain sometime during this year. So you can see in the photo here there's only one crescent seat beside the moon fountain. Sometime before he moved he had to carve that other seat because it's from the same quarry as Ed's place. Orville Irwin says, in 1936 I worked as a printing assistant for the local Homestead Leader Enterprise newspaper, recalls Orville Irwin. One day the editor, Ben Archer, came to the printing house. There was a wide smile on his face and he said Ed wanted to publish a book. So Ed publishes his book in 1936. We don't know what year he would have began writing it. 1937. Now we got some other strange headlines. January 10th, 1937. Mr. Real Estate Man, look over Ed's place and see the possibility of making money. Go to Ed's place and have a new experience. Bring your camera, you will want your picture taken. More than 17,000 people have seen the Ed's place. Make yourself one more, then more than 17,000. Clip this out now so you will have the road directions handy at all times. Sounds more like he's advertising his place for people to come see, and then you can see the possibility, if you buy land out there, what you could do. And that's what I think. So April 28th, 1937, Ed pays $10 for 10 acres of land from bankrupt owner J.W. Boone. And J.W. Boone was having all sorts of problems at that time. So we don't know how much this lot was cleared before Ed moved on to it or anything. So Ed tells Orville and Bob Biggers and some others that he plans on moving. He's out of there. And during the conversation with Orville, Ed mentions that he had recently bought 10 acres of land in Homestead, about 10 miles east. In the meantime, March 25th, 1937, they're still having wiener roasts. All sorts of groups are still going to Ed's place to look at his creations. 1938. There's Ed's place in 1938. Looks like he's starting to move some stuff around. Here's Rock Gate, 1938. Looks like stuff's already going on there. You can see the outline. Orchard down here. So we don't know what J.W. Boone had on here in the first place. So by this time, Ed should have property cleared and his wooden home from Ed's place. This one, he would have brought that and brought it over to this property. Set it down over here somewhere to live in as he worked on Rock Gate. (1939). The Star Obelisk is moved. Moon's moved. The moon fountain is moved. Rockers and other pieces are transported by truck and trailer with solid rubber tires through town into Rock Gate. Ed finishes moving everything from Florida City to Homestead, some say. And then Ed begins carving new pieces. We're talking some busy years here. In July 1939, the Redland District News published an article with a very long headline. Ed does a colossal resettlement job, but he doesn't need any help. Thank you. If you happen to meet a small man in South Florida who is pulling and pushing to load massive blocks of stone on a trailer, don't offer him help. He will refuse you kindly but surely. Even if you pay him $1, he won't let you touch his stones. Therefore, if you pay him, your money will be in the wind. Ed moves his equipment from Florida City to a location off the federal highway near Modelo. Ed knows more tourists will visit his place at the new location, but he wants to tell everyone that it won't be a place where people are fooled. (1940). Orwell Irwin observes that one block of Ed's took about a week, which means that the whole wall that Ed built at Rockgate Park took more than a year. Then Ed began to build the house. It was again a square tower in the very southwest corner of the stone pyramid. January 19th, Ed fills out his declaration of intention to become a naturalized citizen of the USA. This is also the same year the telescope is carved and raised. Also, I have heard that this was the same year that Ed carved all the inscriptions into the obelisk as well. (1941). Ed's father passes away. I also believe in 1941. This is the only time that Ed would have been able to construct the sundial and observe it. So I think it was 1941. 1942, January 19th, Ed fills out his petition for naturalization. So we got Declaration of Intention in 1940, and then you do a petition for naturalization. 1942 is when he did that. This is a photo of Rockgate Park in 1942, around 1942, maybe the beginning of 1942. This is long before Ed had a quarry there for the walls and the blocks for his tower. 1942. How can this man have so much happening in so few years? You can see for sure the sundial is up. First rocker is on top. (1943). January 7th, Nikola Tesla passes away. It's also said that Ed places the chevron crowning his complete achievement. Also, Ed shows Fred J. Fuse how he did some of his achievements and acquires a number of V magnets scrapped from Model T cars. In 1943, Ed is really starting to look into the magnetic wheels and stuff like that. He begins his in-depth experiments. (1944). Looking down, 1944, and Ed's got so much happening down there now. Looks like all the walls are up. He's still got an orchard over here. Look at all the trees. 1944, Ed becomes a naturalized citizen of the USA. Ed applies for U.S. citizenship now, after a visit from the FBI. The FBI come around wondering about all of his aerials. Just what he's doing. Is he a spy? Also around this time, Ed bought an expensive mattress, which seems very uncharacteristic for him. He buys an expensive mattress, and sometime later an oil lamp blows over during the day, igniting the mattress and burns most of Ed's belongings. All of his experiment notes, years of research, gone. Sounds a little odd to me. But that's recorded in the Carol Lake book. Now, June 25th, 1944, Ed is so proud of his sundial. He talks about it all the time. There's also a video made that year, and it shows Ed raising and moving his blocks. The footage is aired a couple times and then forgotten about until Darren Nemeth, a film collector, released the rare forgotten footage many years later on YouTube. Within the 8mm footage, Ed is working on his living quarters, and some walls appear to be unfinished. No chevron is to be seen. At this time, the sundoor was painted white with the words, "Ring bell, in 2 minutes attendant will be here." 1945, August. After 2 years of experimenting at Rockgate, the book Magnetic Current is published. October 1945, Mineral, Vegetable, and Animal Life is published. (1946), February 3rd, having done more experiments and also wanting to promote his book, Magnetic Current, Ed pays to have an advertisement posted in the Miami Daily News. February 24th, Ed publishes a second advertisement in the Miami Daily News. Electrons, Cosmic Force. He writes, "Here is additional information for those who read my advertisement in the Miami Daily News, February 3rd, 1946. Now, it seems in 1946, Ed creates the sundoor. He paints over his previous message to visitors. He draws a diagram for all to see. He mentions this diagram in the ad and invites researchers and scientists to come and see how it, along with the sundial and telescope, could affect science. May 20th, Ed publishes Magnetic Base. It's an advertisement in the Daily News. It says, researchers, experimenters, and other people read about magnetic current. So Ed publishes a number of books through 1936, books and pamphlets, 1936 to 1946. And it said in 1947, Ed stopped selling all publications. It's not known how many of the originals were sold. 1948, by this time, US 1 had been extended to Key West and was realigned to its current route through Jacksonville. So I guess it would be somewhere in these years is when Ed agreed to have the highway widened through a portion of his land. Meanwhile, it really didn't affect him because he was built so far off there anyways, right? Or did it affect? I know in the long run it affected. 1950. Harry Leedskalnin contacts Ed by mail claiming that he is kin and was a POW in Germany and was now residing in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Harry comes out, visits Ed, stays for a few days at Rock Gate. At the end of the visit, Ed gives him $50, and away Harry goes. Now, we're not sure what month that was that Harry showed up, but on October 9th, after 35 years, Ed writes a letter to his older brother, Otto. Remember, he's the one that bought the 16 acres. Ed writes a letter to his older brother Otto, including with it 2 photographs. One of that at the obelisk wearing his casual clothes and pointing to his name, Ed L. And at this point in time, the D was still engraved on the obelisk. The other picture is very rare, as it shows Ed wearing a suit standing on a block with a white and black sign below that says, Ed himself. So this letter arrives at the post office for Otto on November 15th. We don't know what was said in the letter. We don't know if Ed was asking about Harry. We don't know. Not sure what. Here's a photo of Ed in 1950, showing the telescope. Now, so the story goes that Otto did write back to Ed, and he gave it to his son Eval's to send the letter back to Ed. But Eval's, Leedskalnin, was too frightened to send it. I don't know what was in the letter, or why he was too frightened to send it, but he did not send it back to Ed, so Ed never got a reply back. 1951, there's a will prepared on November 24th. Ed writes another will. November 9th, Ed pins a sign to his door that says, "Gone to hospital, we'll be right back." Walks onto a bus and heads off to the Jackson Memorial Hospital. Later that week, Miss Laura Thorpe saw mail and papers accumulating on Ed's doorstep. Curious, she went to his door and found the note. There was no date or signature. December 7th, 1951, Ed passes away. December 12th, Ed is buried at Flagler Memorial Park in Miami. After his passing, his living quarters, the whole park is ransacked. Anything movable, including shrubs and trees, were taken. The bicycle was still there, but his box camera was gone, and his book and big dictionary were also stolen, along with his radio, and $3,700 was found in Ed's radio stand later on. (1952) October 16th, 1952. Article in Miami Daily News reveals that Ed left a will with his estate to be divided equally among his nephews. The problem is he named no names. The paper also says Ed left behind $28,500. 6 or more people claiming to be related have already come in by this time seeking money. Tons of people are showing up saying they knew Ed and that they deserved some money, they deserved the estate. So at some point in time, Harry wins the title to Rock Gate with the help of Roscoe Brunstetter, former mayor of Coral Gables. This time, 1952, Ed's place looks a little like that. Ed's first place. (1953) In January, Harry is looking to sell Rockgate, and a number of people are interested in purchasing. Julius Levin is a successful buyer in the end. Now, other sources say Rockgate was bought through the court as no decision on rightful owner was reached. But what I heard actually happen is Harry did not pay any of the taxes. He couldn't afford the taxes on the place. He couldn't afford the upkeep. And that's why he had to sell. And I don't know if he lost it. I don't think Harry lost the place because it said with the money that he got from Rockgate that he opened up a gas station. 1954. The newspapers are back and photos of Ed's flywheel is published. It appears the main apparatus is still intact. Some components have been clearly removed. Ed's bike may be missing by this time. It may have been in 1954 that Julius Levin began publishing Ed's books again, as well. Also, it said that Mr. Levin immediately started a real show business. The quarries were partly filled. The sheds of the tools were demolished. Most of Ed's iron and logs were taken to a landfill. 1955. In May, no one believes a single man could achieve what Ed did without any help. So Levin asked Miss Lova if she could gather some sworn statements from the people who knew Ed and witnessed that he did all of his work alone, so in the future it could be shown officially. 1956. Harry Leedskalnin passes away. I did do a short video on him if you're interested in Harry Leedskalnin. 1957. They decide to change the name to Coral Castle, which I'm sure bothered a lot of people. 1957 might also be the year where A Book in Every Home started being published with the statistics on the back page. Book in Every Home is such a mystery. Where's the original? Nobody has an original yet. I find that bizarre. 1958. Carol Lake publishes Coral Castle book. He also publishes an article in the Civil Engineering magazine in 1958. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Carol A. Lake is a mystery. I have not been able to dig up much on him at all. I would like to know if he was a personal friend of Ed's or what that book is all about. It's very strange he would write a whole book on Ed. He was on the Miami Daily News staff. 1960. Hurricane Donna comes through. Tears through the Rockgate Park. Unfortunately, it destroys Ed's wooden home, his wooden shack. Knocks down many trees, etc., etc. A personal account from August of 1961 tells us that the guide mentioned to them the old cabin in the back of the property had rotted and partially collapsed. They asked if they could take a look, but they were told no, it's too dangerous, too overgrown. 1964. Ed's brother Otto passes away at the age of 89. Of 1971, Ed's relatives in Latvia file for litigation over rights to Rockgate. 1971, Evals and Antra, Anna and Jovita file a lawsuit over the right to the inheritance of Edward Leedskalnin, which had been left in Florida. They are all saying Harry was not the rightful person to get Ed's property, and that they, by blood, rightfully own the place. (1972, 1973). June 15th, 1973. Julius Levins is looking to sell Rockgate Park. He has failing health and he wants to unload it before he's gone. He's talking in terms of a little over $500,000. But he wants it to be protected. So Julius Levins is trying to sell Rockgate. It actually shows up in a Russian newspaper. He says the new owners will not be interested in maintaining Rockgate Park, and I am afraid that they could destroy the amazing work of Edward Leedskalnin. I have always thought that Latvians should take care of the property, making it a cultural monument. I also hope that the state of Florida or Dade County would be able to buy and maintain it, but they do not seem to have the resources to do so. So Julius Levins is trying to sell it, but he's worried that if he sells it to someone, it's going to be torn down. On December 27th, 1973, December 27th, 1974, a lawyer of the Latvian SSR, authorized by the USSR Injury College, wrote to Evaldis, "As you know, we failed to find the death certificates of your grandfather, Andres, and grandmother, Minas, Leo, Edward, and your brother Arvid's birth certificates. The registry office told us that Rudolph's death was not registered there and that the time and place of the death had to be announced." 1981. February 23rd, 1981. Julius Levins sold the Coral Castle, Rockgate Park, to Coral Castle Incorporated, whose officer is Irving Barr. Now 10 years have passed and the lawsuit still did not move forward. Remember, Ed's family in Latvia is still trying to get the place all through these years. On October 19th, 1981, Shakin's lawyer wrote to Evals, "The Moscow injury has told us that the case of Edward Leedskalnin's legacy is unrealistic and may need to be terminated. We will inform you further." 1983. April 2nd. Maria Tompkin, Michael Zime from the Florida Division of Archives submit a Register of Historic Places nomination form and lists Irene Barr as owner of Rockgate. Rockgate becomes a National Historic Place officially. May 11th, the Leedskalnin family case is dropped and they do not inherit Rockgate. It is not known specifically why they lost the case after so long. 1984, May 11th, Evals received the last letter. The Moscow Ingrian College has informed us that the case of Edward Leedskalnin's legacy has been terminated as unreal. 1985. Irene Barr is photographed in a bride's dress on the stairs of Rockgate Park. The year after, they decide they're going to fix the 9-ton gate. July 24th, 1986, they reinstall the 9-ton gate. They fix that all up. Another thing they do is they talk the owners of Ed's first place, they talk them into donating the ADM sign to Coral Castle Incorporated, and they bring it to Rockgate Park in 1986. And it's all set up by the end of October 1986. So they fix the 9-ton gate, they bring in the ADM sign. That all happened in 1986. This is the original spot the ADM sign should be. It's where Ed wanted it preserved. 2000. In 2000, in the book Coral Castle Construction by John Martin, great book. He says the tour guide Ray Ramirez expressed concern over the care of the place and did not seem happy with some of the changes. In 2000, when he started working there, a crew of men had cleaned the sculptures with a pressure washer and a strong bleach. The bleach did clean the rock, but it also eroded it in some places. He pointed to pits in the top of the Valentine table and said, "Before they cleaned it, this table was completely smooth. Now it's rough and pitted." Can't forget the book How to Read His Writings. That was published in 2000 by Ed Marlinsky. 2001, in October, newsletter reports that Mike Patton of the Fantomas is detained for several hours at the Miami airport for carrying an unusually large amount of cash. He later reveals to them that he was on his way to purchase an old book about the Coral Castle that contained a note inside written by Edward Leedskalnin. Fortunately, Mike never found the person, and their phone had been disconnected. Was it the original A Book in Every Home? Was it 2010? I'm not sure precisely when. Due to rust, the sun door was removed. The hinges were all rotten out. So rather than fixing it, they decided to take it right out of there. They grabbed the sun door, took it out, threw it behind a shed, and as far as I know, that's where it still lays. 2016, they're doing some paths, bunch of landscaping, and they find this quarry here. Whether they knew about the quarry before or not, I don't know, but 2016, they uncover this quarry, which has a real cool chair in it. Looks like a chair. And then that's all we've got at this point of time. If anybody knows anything else, if you know when this door came down, the exact date of when the door came down, because I had a friend that went there in 2009 and the door was still up. So thank you for all your time. I hope everybody has a great day. I'll be back soon.